Okay, now I'm going to talk about the synth section, which is this area here. You have 8 different sections to the synth section. Brass strings, synth lead, bass, pad, choir, SFX and others. And again, you have an individual volume control for this particular section. So when you start layering, you've got an independent control over the other sounds. So I'm going to start off with the top, just hitting on the brass sound here. And again, using the effects. The whole idea of this keyboard is the fact that you can do everything on the fly. So for instance, I've got a nice pad here. I think it's like a JP8 pad. But then start having fun with the effects, and you can turn what's quite sweet into something quite horrible. And with this delay, using a tape delay, a tape echo delay. So that's synth brass. Also, under the synth section, under each different area, you have acoustic tones. So I can stay on brass, and I can come down to a supernatural trumpet. If I just turn the effects back down. For those who don't know, the behavior modeling is where you can mimic the actual way an instrument's played, and the trumpet on this has it. So if I use just the trumpet sound, I can do the trill. But unlike the other keyboards, I can put overdrive on it as well. So that's the brass section. I'm going to move on to the brass section. I'm going to move on to the strings now. The first one at the top is a great one to show anyway. It's the Jupiter 8 strings 1. Just reset my effects. And you've got some lovely big string sounds on it. Again, cut off resonance. The delay on it will go on forever as well if you wanted to. So that's strings. Now also, you're not just restricted to synth tone strings, you've also got some lovely acoustic tones. So you just scroll down. One I particularly like is mood strings. Same again, just go through. This time I've got a phaser on the multi-effects. Turning it into an organ. Moving on, synth lead. As I said before, I've got the iPad editor up here, and for those of you familiar with the Jupiters and the Integra, it's the same editor on board. I have 3 partials, that's 3 oscillators I can run at any one time on any synth tone, and underneath it I also have my various different waveforms that I can use. So I've got the regular synth lead sound on here. I can change the waveform. So I've got sawtooth, square, pulse width, triangle, sine wave, noise wave, super saw. And then I've got all the other functions that I can do. My low filters, high pass filters, band pass, peaking filters. I've got full control. The way it's set up at the top here, you've got the upper and it's showing 2. It's because the keyboard can play 2 tones at any one time, whether it be a piano along with a synth or 2 synth tones. You can do it any way you want to. But so if I was to use 2 synth tones, it would show 1 and 2. If I'm splitting the keyboard, the lower, if I put a split on the keyboard now, you can see that the lower light has come on. The red one is the one I'm going to be editing. So if you want to edit a different one, just pick the different colors. So I'm going to come back to this one, switch the low, to turn the split off, and it'll just come to 1 tone. So I've got full control here now. Cut off, resonance, and all my envelopes now. So it's quite an in-depth editor on board as well. Coming back to the keyboard, so I've got my synth tone. Not only can I edit all of this wirelessly or with a cable, I could still got control now of everything I had before. As I said again, with the synth section, it's not just synth tones, but most of the tones up here are made up from synth tones on the synth lead section. So you can get some nice guitar sounds on board as well, just using the onboard effects, which is the distortion on the multi-effects on this one, and then adding. So that's under synth lead. Moving on, we've got the basses. Great synth bass, great for dubstep as well. You've got some nice control over the cutoff on this. So get rid of the effect. Put a bit of flange on it though, just a little bit. And use a cutoff, so bring the resonance down. A bit more distortion. And again, anything I want to edit, whether I want to change the filter, for instance, I prefer using a peaking filter on dubstep sounds. All of that you can do on the fly as well. Moving on, pad sounds, absolutely full of really nice pad sounds. So I'm going to turn the distortion off, come back to the effects, just use the effects that's been assigned to it, which is modulation in this case. Bit of delay. But I want to take all the attack off now, so I use my attack envelope. So you've got various different pads on board, and also LFO pads as well. You can control your LFO from here again, so you can program your LFOs on the iPad. And just scroll right to the bottom. You've got a nice LFO right at the bottom of the list. So that was the pad section. You've also got choir, SFX and others. Others covers things like glockenspiel, acoustic guitars, etc. And before I finish this, just to point out that the SFX, which is in various different effects, can be assigned to the D beam. So you can basically pick an effect that you want and you can actually trigger it from the D beam, which is quite handy as an extra little instrument really. So that's the synth section.